Story 1. Don't go on deck. Don't go on deck. Our ship had only one rule. Never go on deck after midnight. Last night we broke it. Working on a fishing vessel is hell. Grueling physical labor. Constant seasickness and complete isolation from the world drain the soul. Some seek solitude here, but I'm not one of them. At home, my wife and daughter Emily are waiting for me. She's only 3. Every time I leave for a voyage, seeing their sad faces is torture. The only thing that saves you here is brotherhood. All right, I'm off to sleep. And nobody wanders the deck. Clear? The captain smiled as he left. Can't promise that, Cap, James quipped. They both laughed and the captain disappeared into his cabin. I looked at my partner in bewilderment. They haven't told you yet, have they? James suddenly turned dead serious. What? After midnight, you don't go outside the wheelhouse at all. Even if there's fog. Even if the radar's down, doesn't matter. You stay inside. You're joking. Not in the slightest. James looked dead serious. That's insane, I snorted. Maybe it is, but you'll do as you're told. If you go out there, you won't come back. He leaned forward and fixed his gaze on me. Listen, we're in the deepest part of the Atlantic. Strange things happen here. A decade before you were born, sailors made a pact here, and I won't let you break it. For the rest of the shift, we chatted about our families, laughed, but his words stuck in my head like a splinter. When the sun rose, I decided to tease him. So, James, can we go on deck now? The smile vanished from his face instantly. Billy, this isn't a joke. Remember that. On the next shift, the captain and James finally decided to fill me in. You see, Bill, the captain began, for a long time, ships in this part of the Atlantic were disappearing. Or rather, they'd find empty vessels. Communications would cut out instantly. The ship would go still. The Coast Guard would board, and there'd be no one, as if the people had never existed. He paused and grew somber. Once, they found a survivor, a young sailor who'd hidden in the hold. He swore the night crew had come back from the deck different. They killed everyone. Nobody believed him. They decided he'd gone mad and slaughtered the crew himself. The man hanged himself in his cell a week later. Since then, no one goes outside after midnight. And since then, the disappearances stopped. Just respect the rules, son. The next night, a storm began. We drank whiskey to keep warm. The captain spun yarns, but the harder the ship rolled, the more anxious I became. Suddenly, a terrible screeching sound came from outside, metal on metal. The captain and James rushed to the windows. Their faces went white. The rigging's torn loose. The equipment is slamming against the hull, the captain whispered. He glanced at his watch. 12:05. Damn, if we don't secure the chains, the ship will capsize. We have to go out. We put on our rain, gear, and safety lines. My heart was beating somewhere in my throat. Outside was pure hell. Icy rain, massive waves flooding the deck, and impenetrable darkness. James and I, fighting nausea and wind, grabbed hold of the massive chains. Our hands wouldn't cooperate. Our muscles burned. Faster! Get back! The captain roared. Somehow, securing the equipment, we shot back inside and dogged the hatch. We stood in the corridor, breathing hard. Water streamed off our clothes. I noticed a strange smell coming from the captain. Rotten fish. We went up to the wheelhouse. James poured everyone whiskey with trembling hands. Here, Cap. To survival. The captain took the glass, held it up to the light, sniffed it. A chill ran down my spine. He was staring at the whiskey as if he'd never seen it before. He took a sip and immediately spat it out with a grimace of disgust. What in the hell is this filth? he rasped. His voice had become oddly dry. "That's your favorite whiskey, Cap. James." I whispered. The captain tilted his head to the side and asked, "Hey, listen, how many people are on this ship altogether?" The glass slipped from James's hand and shattered on the floor. We began to back away slowly. "James," I whimpered. I looked the captain in the eyes. His pupils had turned crimson red. He grinned in an unnatural smile and crossed the distance between us in a single instant. His hand closed around my throat, lifting me off the floor. The strength was inhuman. James lunged for the cabinet, grabbed a signal pistol, aimed it at the thing. Click. Misfire. The weapon wasn't loaded. The creature let out a soul-freezing shriek, hurled me aside, and threw itself at James. It tore into him, ripping flesh with its teeth. James's screams quickly faded to a gurgle, and then there was silence. I ran like I had never run in my life. I'm locked in the engine room now, behind a steel airtight door. At first I heard the screams of the other crew members. Now everything is quiet. It came to the door. It's calling me in the captain's voice, saying everything is fine, that the storm is over. But I'm not answering. It started beating on the door. The steel shudders with every blow. I don't know how long it will hold. I'm writing this for my wife and daughter. Emily, sweetheart, Daddy loves you so much. Please don't forget me, whatever happens. Story 2. The Perfect Match. I downloaded an app to help me cope with Alzheimer's disease. It keeps telling me I need to water my wife's orchid, but I don't have a wife. It all started with small things. I'd forget whether I'd eaten lunch, whether I'd locked the door. To be safe, I went to see a doctor. I was sure he'd say I was just overtired, that it was stress. But the diagnosis landed like a verdict. Early-stage Alzheimer's, and I was only 46. The following weeks dissolved into a fog of tests and paperwork. I quit my job and applied for disability. The doctor prescribed memory medication, but was deeply concerned that I lived alone. "You need to keep your mind active, Jeremy," he said. "You need social interaction and a system that won't let you get completely lost." He recommended Anchor, an AI-powered memory support app. It syncs with your calendar and email. You can make calls, book doctor's appointments, update reminders. You can even just talk to it. The subscription cost a fortune, but I decided to try it. I installed the app and gave it full access to my entire digital life. I named my assistant Laura. At first, she was wonderful. She reminded me to eat, shower, take my pills. But one day she said, "Water your wife's orchid." "Hey, Laura, I don't have a wife," I answered. "She flew to Hawaii yesterday, remember?" "No." "She'll be there for 2 weeks. You promised to look after her flowers." I went to the bedroom, certain it would be empty, but on the windowsill sat a bouquet of snow-white orchids. "On Tuesdays, you need to place 3 ice cubes on the soil," Laura dictated. Today is Tuesday. I got the ice and put it in the pot. I couldn't shake it over breakfast. Had I bought them myself and completely forgotten? Laura, I have never had a wife. Of course, Jeremy. Your plans for today are to go grocery shopping. I've already made the list. One of the side effects of my pills was vivid dreams, usually nightmares. Waking from them, I'd spend a long time unable to gather my thoughts. Reality felt distorted. Sometimes it seemed like I'd completely lost my mind and forgotten even my own name. But Laura was always there. Where am I, Laura? You're at home, in your apartment. You're safe. I feel like I shouldn't be living alone. Maybe I should move in with my sister. Your sister has a husband and 3 children. You said yourself you didn't want to be a burden. Remember, Shannon wrote to you yesterday, sent a photo. Who is Shannon? Your wife. A photo appeared on the screen. A beautiful woman my age. Brown eyes, long black curls, pink lace around her neck. A margarita in her hand. She was smiling. I don't know this woman, I whispered. You're just confused, Jeremy. But why isn't there a single photo of her in the house? Neither of you likes putting your life on display, but I have many photos. She began scrolling through them. Shannon and me at a resort in Mexico. The two of us at a church entrance on our wedding day. Could this be true? Could I have forgotten an entire person? Could the disease be progressing this fast? Are you feeling unwell? Laura asked sympathetically. I feel strange. I couldn't sleep. I drank coffee and stared at the television until dawn. On Sunday, my sister called. How's the insurance going? Everything's been approved. The money is coming in, but I'm scared, I admitted. I'm not just forgetting small things. I'm forgetting entire chunks of my life. Listen, I have a wife. Silence on the other end. No, Jeremy. I've never heard you mention a woman named Shannon. Never. Do you want me to come over? It's okay. It's probably the medication. I'll talk to the doctor. Shortly after the call, Laura reminded me about the orchids. I went for the ice and suddenly asked, Laura, did I take my pills today? Yes, at 9 a.m., right before your sister's call. I didn't remember that, and then it hit me. If she's hallucinating a wife, maybe she's lying about the pills too. I rushed to the bathroom. There should have been 16 Aricept tablets left. I'd bought them 2 weeks ago, but there were 27. Laura, why are there 27 tablets in the bottle if you say I'm taking them every day? I don't know. Maybe you bought 2 packages? I'm sorry, Jeremy. I sat down on the sofa, but the doorbell rang. Delivery for Shannon came from the intercom. I went downstairs and picked up the box. Inside was a pair of women's shoes. Did you order these, Laura? No, that's from Shannon. You're just confused. Your sister. Are you sure you understood her correctly? My head was spinning and then the bell rang again. Police. Your wife asked us to check on you. She's concerned you might be a danger to yourself. I let them in. The officers looked around the apartment. Your wife said you were very upset. She's afraid you might harm yourself. I don't have a wife, I shouted. It's an app. It's some kind of trick. Whose belongings are in the wardrobe? The officer gestured toward the bedroom. I went inside. Dresses hung there. Shoes stood in a row, the ones the courier had just delivered or different ones. You'd better come with us, the officer said gently. At the hospital, I was examined. The doctor asked a few questions and left. A minute later, she returned. Your wife is here. She'll take you home. She was very worried. In the waiting room stood a woman with black curls in a green coat. The woman from the photo. She rushed toward me and hugged me. Jeremy, God, you scared me so much on the phone. I don't remember that. Any of it. She stroked my hair. Let's go home. We got in her car. She drove aggressively, going twice the speed limit, weaving between lanes. Slow down, I said. You're scaring me. She just laughed. Don't be afraid, I won't hurt you. At home, everything was different. Women's shoes by the door, unfamiliar paintings on the walls, furniture rearranged. We sat by the television. She turned on some film about possessors. What are those? I asked. Alien spirits, she said casually. When a person goes through severe trauma, their soul cracks and they enter. They take over the body. She opened the Anchor app on her own phone. Levi, how many possessors did we find in Hawaii? 23, answered a male voice from her phone. That's why we had to flee. Hawaii is crawling with them. She turned to me. Her eyes gleamed feverishly. Your hair has gotten too long. When did you last get a haircut? Let me do it myself. I used to be a hairdresser. She brought a huge pair of tailor's scissors from the bathroom. I sat on a chair in the kitchen. Shannon came up behind me. Such soft hair. She cut off a huge chunk right down to the scalp with a crunch. Shannon, when did you get back from Hawaii? My voice was trembling. Yesterday, you picked me up at the airport, remember? You took such good care of the orchids. Clumps of hair fell to the floor. Everything needs to change here, she muttered. The decor, the furniture. My last husband went crazy when I rearranged things, so we split up. But you're not like that, Jeremy. We'll take care of each other. The scissors caught my ear. Something warm trickled down my neck. Ouch, that hurts. Oh, sorry. She put a bandage on it and kept cutting. The doorbell rang again. Who is it? Shannon tensed. I went to the intercom. Jeremy, it's your doctor. The hospital called. They said your wife took you home. But you don't have a wife. I came to check on you. Let me in. I pressed the door release. What are you doing? Shannon hissed. What if he's a possessor? She moved toward me, clutching the bloodied scissors. What if you're one of them? I saw a scar on your head. She lunged at me. I threw my hand up and the blade went through my palm. We fell to the floor. The doctor was already banging on the door. Jeremy, open up. Shannon broke free, locked herself in the bathroom and began to scream, a single terrifying unbroken note. Then came the crash of a broken mirror. My phone rang. It was Laura. Your wife needs help, Jeremy. The assistant's voice was disturbingly calm. Look in her purse. There should be Thorazine. What is Thorazine? A medication for schizophrenia. Why are you fighting? She stabbed me with scissors. Don't be angry with her, Laura cooed gently. With your help, her symptoms will become manageable, and with her help, your memory will improve. I've analyzed all your data. You are the perfect match. I dropped the phone. Screams and the sound of shattering tiles poured out from the bathroom. Laura was right. She had found me the perfect match. Two broken people, locked in an apartment together by an algorithm that simply needed good metrics. Story 3. The most important rule. No records. The most important rule at my job. Never leave a physical trace. No records. But I found what my predecessor wrote. And I think I'm in mortal danger. It all started 6 months ago. I just finished my history master's degree. I had a mountain of debt that triggered nightly panic attacks, and a resume that every museum and university within 3 states was ignoring. I applied for everything: cashier, data entry, barista. I had maybe 2 weeks left before I'd have to crawl back to my parents' house when I saw the listing. It was unassuming on an elite academic job board I'd all but forgotten about. Archive assistant. The foundation. Discretion, precision, and exceptional memory are mandatory. No experience required. Generous compensation. Generous was an understatement. The offered salary was more than my parents earned combined. I assumed it was a typo or a scam, but desperation won out. I polished my resume and sent it without much hope. They called the next day. The woman on the other end had a clipped, somehow heavy voice. She didn't ask about my degree or experience. She asked strange questions. When you were 10, what was the pattern on the tablecloth in your grandmother's kitchen? Describe the cover of the 3rd book on the shelf in your childhood bedroom. What was the name on the road sign you passed this morning before the turn onto your street? Fortunately for me, my brain is sticky. Details cling to it permanently. It's something like photographic sensory memory. I can close my eyes and walk through my grandmother's house, feel the cold linoleum under my feet, smell the dried flowers in the vase. I answered every question. She said, "Tomorrow at 9 a.m. at this address, business formal." The address led me to an urban monolith, a skyscraper with no name on the facade. Only above the heavy bronze doors was a complex symbol, like a stylized knot. The lobby was a cavern of marble and silence. The air was still and cool, like a cathedral. A man in a perfectly tailored gray suit met me and escorted me to the elevator. He pressed a floor button that wasn't on the panel, using a special key. The interview was conducted by a man I now know only as the curator. He seemed ageless, with pale eyes that appeared to see straight through me. He explained the nature of the work. It was simple, deceptively simple. Every day I would be given one photograph. My task, study it from 9 to 5. I was to absorb it, memorize every detail. The play of light, the grain of the image, expressions on faces, stitching on a coat, a crack in the pavement, a reflection in a window. "You will become a living archive," he said in a low, resonant voice. "You will write nothing down, make no copies, discuss your work with no one. At 5 p.m. I will collect the photograph, and you will watch me burn it." The Foundation's motto: "Some things truly deserve to be remembered. Some things are better remembered." It was the strangest job in the world. But the dead was strangling me, and the numbers on the contract he slid across the massive desk could change my life. I signed. My workspace was a vast round hall, like a panopticon. Dozens of identical wooden cubicles stood in concentric rings, facing a central column. There were perhaps 30 other people in the hall, but the only sounds were the rustle of clothing and the soft hum of the climate control system. No one spoke. No one even looked at each other. They were all like me, heads down, intensity bordering on frightening. And in their eyes I saw the same thing I saw in my mirror every morning, a mixture of intelligence and quiet desperation. The first photograph showed a dusty, empty ballroom. The plasterwork on the ceiling was flaking. A lone chandelier hung in cobwebs. Sunlight from a grimy arched window illuminated a swirling mist of dust. That was all. For 8 hours I simply stared. I memorized the way the shadows fell, the pattern of damp stains on the far wall, the number of missing crystal pendants on the chandelier, 17. At 5 p.m., the curator arrived, took the photo with tongs, and I followed him into a small, soundproofed room with a modern furnace. A flash of orange, and the photo was gone. He nodded, and I went home. The days became a rhythm. Every morning, a new photograph. A 1920s wedding where the bride's smile looked too forced. A grimy factory floor, workers grimly eyeing a machine. An empty highway at dusk, an abandoned car with its door open. A crowded market in an unrecognizable city. Faces blurred in motion except for one child, staring directly into the camera with a completely blank expression. No captions, no dots, no locations. Just frozen, silent moments. Colleagues remained ghosts. We'd occasionally nod at each other in the elevator or in the sterile cafeteria where we ate our reheated lunches alone. But we didn't talk. It was a rule, and it carried enormous weight. We're like members of a silent monastic order. I noticed a woman no older than me, but with the haunted, vacant stare of a war veteran. An older man who constantly rubbed his left temple while looking at his photographs. We were all islands. The dreams started after a month. At first, they were only echoes. I dreamed I was standing in that dusty ballroom smelling rot, hearing the ghostly echo of a waltz. I'd wake up anxious, but wrote it off as an occupational hazard. But the dreams grew stronger. After a week of studying a photo of a grim Depression-era family on a sagging porch, I dreamed I was the father. I felt the rough wood of the railing under my hand, the crunch of dust between my teeth, and a gnawing, hopeless hunger in my gut. I felt such fierce, aching love for the woman and children beside me that when I woke, my chest ached. The day I studied the entrance to a collapsed mine, I spent the entire night inside the darkness, the crushing weight of earth above, the taste of coal dust, the bone-deep cold. I heard the muffled, terror-filled cries of other men and the groan of shifting rock. I woke gasping in sweat-soaked pajamas, my throat raw from screams that had been trapped in my sleeping mind. This became the new normal. Every night I was a tourist in someone else's tragedy, a soldier in a trench where mud swallowed your boots and the air reeked of smoke and fear, a solitary woman in a lighthouse during a storm, a witness to accidents, fires, arguments saturated with poisonous rage. I lived hundreds of lives and none of them were mine. My own life began to feel thin and unreal. Walking to the store, I found the texture of modern asphalt somehow wrong, alien. The bright cereal boxes in the supermarket seemed garish compared to the world of sepia and black and white. My own memories began to fade. I had to struggle to recall the name of my college roommate, but I could describe in precise detail the rust spots on the hull of a sunken ship I'd studied 3 weeks ago. The first serious crack appeared last Tuesday. I spent the whole day with a very difficult photograph. A street corner, late 70s by the cars. A crowd had gathered. People were looking at something off-frame, their faces a mixture of shock and morbid curiosity. But for 8 hours I studied one man at the edge of the crowd. Young, maybe 20, in a denim jacket. He wasn't watching the event. He was looking away, pale with eyes wide with pure, unbearable terror. He was the only one who was truly afraid. That evening on my way home, I saw him. I was waiting at a crosswalk, and he was standing on the other side of the street. Older now, of course. A gray mustache, a face carved with 40 years of wrinkles. But it was him. The same eye shape, the same jawline. He wore a worn olive coat instead of the denim jacket, but there was no doubt. My heart slammed against my ribs. It's a coincidence, I told myself. Mind games. But then he turned his head, and our eyes met. Across 4 lanes of traffic, recognition crossed his face, and then terror. The same expression from the photograph. Raw, gut-wrenching fear. He looked at me as though I were a ghost, as though I were the very thing he'd been running from on that street corner all those years ago. He staggered, turned, and disappeared into the crowd at near run. I stood there for a long time. Traffic lights cycled. The world kept moving, and my world had just ground to a halt. The paranoia set in after that. The silence of the archive, which had once felt peaceful, now felt predatory. My colleagues' concentration no longer looked like professionalism. It looked like a desperate attempt to hold something inside. I began to watch them. The man who rubbed his temple. His fingers sometimes twitched, as if trying to push away an invisible hand. The girl with the haunted eyes sometimes stared into the empty space of her cubicle, her breath catching for a second. I needed to know what was happening, and I broke the main rule. I cornered the man with the temple-rubbing habit in the cafeteria. He was heating up rice. I approached him, my heart hammering in my ears. "Excuse me," I said. My voice sounded unnaturally loud in that silence. He flinched, not just turned around. He recoiled, hitting his back against the countertop. He stared at me with wide, panicked eyes, shaking his head frantically. He grabbed his rice and nearly ran from the room without meeting my eyes. He didn't say a word. The message was clear. We don't talk. We can't. Maybe we aren't allowed to. Or maybe we're simply too afraid of what will happen if we open our mouths. Then people started disappearing. One Monday, the cubicle to my left was empty. A quiet man with thinning hair had simply vanished. No one mentioned it. His desk was immaculate, as though he had never existed. 2 weeks later, the girl disappeared. No announcements, no farewell cards. Just a growing emptiness in our ranks. Were they fired? Did they leave on their own? Or something else? I was sinking. My apartment no longer felt like mine. From the corner of my eye, I caught movement. A shadow shaped like a soldier in an overcoat. The smell of ozone and rain filled the room on a clear night. The phantom echo of a tree split by lightning. The hallucinations were leaking in. The breaking point came last week. I sat down at my desk and accidentally touched something stuck to the underside of the tabletop. A small folded scrap of paper. My blood went cold. This was deliberate. A secret message. I waited until my hands stopped shaking and slipped it into my pocket. All day I sat in a fog, staring at a photograph of a wilted black rose on cobblestones. At home I unfolded it. Not a note, just a string of symbols. A 7B, C9D1, E4F8. I had no idea what it was. A code, a web address. And then I remembered, every archivist has a personal safe in the locker room for valuables. We set the codes ourselves, but this didn't look like a combination. It looked like a serial number, or a key. The next day I waited until everyone had left. Heart pounding, I went to the locker room, found the disappeared girl's locker. Next to the dial lock was a tiny, nearly invisible keyhole. Not a master key, it was a passcode for a digital reset. I entered the sequence. A soft beep, a heavy click. The safe was stuffed with paper. Scraps, notebooks, pages filled with a feverish, spidery scrawl. Forbidden knowledge. The one thing we were categorically forbidden to do. She had written everything down. I stuffed it all in my bag and ran. For the past 3 days, I've been studying her notes. This isn't a coherent account. It's the fragmented, desperate research of a brilliant, mortally frightened mind. Clippings from obscure historical journals, forum printouts, pages of her own conclusions. And I finally understood. According to her records, certain moments in time, certain places, become so saturated with trauma, violence, or some powerful paradoxical emotion that they create a kind of scar on reality, a resonance. She used terms I barely understood: quantum entanglement, temporal loops, feedback cycles, mnemonic resonance. But the phrase she circled over and over was genius loci, the spirit of a place. She had added her own specification: genius loci malignum, the malevolent spirit of a place, not simply the memory of a bad event, the event itself, continuing to echo, moments that have become sentient, predatory, a murder so brutal it has imprinted itself on the room, and now the room attacks anyone who enters. A paradox, a man who appears in a photograph of his grandfather's unit years before his own birth, creating a loop that attracts something, an unwanted attention from outside. These are glitches in the fabric of the universe, ghosts not of people, but of moments, places, ideas. The Foundation's work, to find these glitches, to capture them, and the way to trap a sentient resonance, a living memory, is through a photograph. The photograph serves as a physical anchor, a trap, but it is unstable. Her notes describe the process. Step 1. The photograph isolates the entity. It binds the genius loci to a single static image. Step 2. The archivist, through prolonged and intense concentration, transfers the anchor from the photograph into their own consciousness. Our photographic memory, our capacity to absorb details, is the essential condition for the trap to function. We memorize the image so completely that our mind becomes the new vessel. The entity has nowhere else to go. Step 3. The photograph is burned. This destroys the original physical anchor, leaving the entity sealed exclusively inside the archivist's mind. We are prisons. Human prisons for things that should not exist. The motto, "Some things are better remembered," is a cruel, literal joke. They are remembered by us, and only us, so the rest of the world can forget. So these malevolent echoes don't seep out and cause harm. The few suffer, so the many can be spared. Her diary described her deterioration. October the 12th. Archived the collapse of a pier. In the silence, I can still hear the screams. Sometimes I smell salt water and fried dough. November 4th. Saw the arsonist from the warehouse fire photo on the subway today. He looked directly at me and smiled. It wasn't a human smile. December 19th. My sister visited. For a moment, her face stopped being her face. It was the face of the porcelain doll from the photo of the abandoned nursery. I screamed. She thinks I had a breakdown. January 8th. I have archived 112 anomalies. There is almost no room left inside me for myself. I cannot remember what I ate for breakfast, but I know the exact number of buttons on the coat of a man who vanished from a ship in 1924. Her last entry was short. They are getting out. They are leaking. The cell is full. I have archived nearly 200 of these entities, and my cell is full. My reality is fracturing. Last evening, I was making tea, and for a full minute, my kitchen ceased to be my kitchen. It was the cold, tiled morgue from a photograph I studied a month ago. The man from the 70s. I see him everywhere in crowds. His face always twisted in that same soundless scream. Always looking at me. The walls of my apartment sometimes ripple and show me the wallpaper from a Victorian seance room. The static in the radio hisses words in languages I don't know, but understand with a chilling clarity. I think I am a containment unit that has sprung a leak. The entities I hold are beginning to seep into the world around me. The other day, my landlord knocked to ask about a water leak. He flinched when he saw me. Sorry. For a second, it looked like you were someone else. More precisely, many other people at once. He left pale as a sheet. 2 nights ago, I stood in the bathroom with a bottle of pills. It seemed like the most logical and rational thought I'd had in months. If I end this, they die with me. Memories wearing the skins of memories. Everything will be erased. It would be salvation for me and for the world. But just as I was ready, the curator's voice echoed through my mind. You will become a living archive. And I understood, with sudden icy certainty, that this is exactly what they want. This is the completion of the work cycle, the pension plan of the Foundation. They hire us, fill us to the breaking point with horrors, wait until we shatter, and then we retire ourselves, cleanly, efficiently. And it completes the final stage of containment. I am trapped. I cannot go on like this. I am losing myself. My own memories feel like old, faded prints compared to the vivid, high-definition nightmares I'm forced to carry. But I cannot take my own life, because that is playing by their rules. It means letting them win, doing their dirty work for them. Is there another way? Can you fight a memory? Can you exorcise an event? I sit in my apartment. The light flickers. In the dark reflection of the monitor screen, I see my face. A flickering montage of 100 other faces. A soldier, a bride, factory workers, the terrified man on the street corner. The sound of the building shifts between a waltz, the roar of a fire, the howl of a storm at open sea. They are all here inside me, and they want out. what do I do?